Hi, welcome to the Blitz Online edition. I'm Josh, this is Fong and Colin. We're not going to dwell on the past very much this week. We'll mention a few of the games that happened, but with something like Troy Piqua on the horizon, the past isn't really important anymore, right?
Not so much. It's all eyes toward the future now.
Well, Troy, leading into this game, they had Greenville to get out of the way, and they took care of business up in Greenville 28-6. Now they're in line. They set up a battle for 500.
Yeah, on paper that's what it looks like. It looks like a battle for 500, but I guarantee you to the coaches and the kids this means a heck of a lot more than that. For most of these kids, this is the greatest athletic event they'll ever participate in. It really is as big a deal as it's made out to be.
Yeah, it's like almost a last week of the season playoff game for these. I think Troy can salvage some of their season by winning this game right here.
Salvage nothing. Even if they finish 500 and beat Piqua, I'm pretty sure all those kids they'll think that they win 8-2 and we're in the playoffs.
If they went 1-9 and beat Piqua, I think everyone would be okay with that.
And Piqua, for its part, is going to limp into this game. Also, they dropped a close one to Butler, much like Troy did.
Right. I mean, if you look at it with the common opponents, a lot of the scores that they've finished with have been pretty close. The Butler game was pretty close to the Sydney game was pretty close. The Trotwood game was pretty close in terms of final scores. In terms of common opponents, they've all been pretty close. So I really think this is going to be when it comes right down to the wire. I don't think any team comes in with a distinct advantage. The last 2 years when Troy had a playoff team, I think you could kind of sense that Troy was the prohibitive favorite in both of those games, but I don't think that's the case this year at all. I think this one's a toss-up.
Our game of the week last week, Milton Union and Waynesville, it sure lived up to the billing, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. Honestly, that was the best football game I've been to. Well, obviously this year, but that game basically, you could sense that both teams really didn't like each other, and that stood from the field to the press box even. I mean, it was chippy all around, honestly. And what it really came down to was Milton's will to win and get into the playoffs. I mean, their defense, it wasn't phenomenal all game, but when it had to be, it made stops. And it was kind of like Waynesville would just drive down the field quickly and, get touchdowns, whatever. Milton would come back for the slow, methodical drive, basically running the ball the entire time, and it was a heck of a game.
They battled each other twice. I was at both of those games last season, both at Waynesville, once in the playoffs, and Waynesville's quarterback had some success against Milton Union's defense, but this year they kind of ball him up a little bit.
I tell you what, he had a heck of a game. He's a sophomore, Troy Black, and he's going to be a heck of a quarterback down the road, but he had some good moments in this game. He had some bad moments I'm sure he'd like back, but for the most part, he impressed me as a sophomore. And
Tyler Brown scoring another game-winning touchdown, even though he's been battling some injuries this year, and he just seems to be tough.
It's a battering ram, man. Just call him touchdown Tyler Brown.
And then we've got Tip setting up its final week showdown with Springfield Shawnee by taking care of Kenton Ridge 28-7. This game was scoreless at the half, just like they did against Milton Union earlier in the year, though. I mean, Tip just finds a way.
Right. I think the only real big surprise that come out of this is the fact that Tip doesn't control his own destiny in terms of winning the Central Buckeye Conference Championship. That comes as a little bit of surprise, I think, to all of us. But it just goes to show what happens. You never can be sure about what's going to happen in the course of a season and how it's going to play itself out.
And Tecumseh's sitting in position to win that. Do you know who they've got in their final game?
Not off the top of my head.
Nah, I don't either. I didn't check that out.
I didn't either.
But even with that loss to Tecumseh, though, it looks like Tip's going to be going on the road, probably to the Cincinnati area in the playoffs. They're sitting in 6th right now. Kenton Ridge or Springfield Shawnee should get them some playoff points, but we don't know how many. And
if they win.
Springfield
Shawnee, who I saw earlier in the season against Troy, who didn't play very well against Troy, but I think they've got some guys healthy now. And it seems like they're a whole different team than what I saw in week 2.
Yeah. They've won 5 out of the last 6. I think they got as good a chance to beat Tip as anybody else does.
And it's on their own home field,
exactly.
Too. Well, then we've got Miami East going to Twin Valley South and getting some revenge. They lost this game in double overtime last year, but this year they win at 27-14. Despite kind of having a patchwork offense, they've had some injuries and just plug and place a new guy, and he gets the job done.
It's their defense, man. What did we say last week? They're hands down the second best team in the CCC when it comes to defense.
Absolutely. Max Curran has been doing that for a long time now.
And speaking of the CCC, the top team in it, Covington rolling over Ansonia 70-0. I'm sure Ansonia was saying the same thing
I
halfway
think
through that one.
I talked to a Covington fan over the weekend, and I think even the Covington fans are getting sick of seeing this kind of outcome every game they go to.
And Bethel, they 41-20 over Arcanum. They now they're in line to get to the 500 mark this weekend.
Which is what we said from the beginning was going to happen. They were going to be a better team at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year, and I tell you what, look out for them next year too.
We've got Bradford clinching a playoff spot already, knocking off Mississinawa Valley 49-14. Where's Bradford going at the moment?
It's not good news. It's Marion Local, who we know has given the CCC some problems in the past. Good luck. That's all I got to say.
And it could change still. I mean, there could be some shuffling around.
There usually is some shuffling in that last week.
Well, one team that doesn't get a last week is Lehman. Their season's over. They dropped a 50-14 game to Spencerville this weekend, and without a Week 10 opponent, they're just kind of in limbo now.
There were a lot of teams left scrambling when Troy Christian had to drop football before the season started. Sometimes you have a little more time when they make a decision like that earlier in the year, but they made that a kind of a last-minute decision, and there were a lot of teams left on the lurch by that.
We don't have a segment for this weekend either. This is Troy Pickle Week. There's too much to talk about, so make sure you pick up a copy of the Blitz on Friday.
Absolutely. There's going to be plenty written about this game before and after, I'm sure.
Well, and then it's time to put up or shut up. Like we've said, this is an even matchup. Who you got, Troy or Piqua?
This is an even matchup, but I think the fact that Troy has a lot of confidence, based on the fact that they've won 5 in a row, but then on the flip side, you could say, Piqua could be hungrier because, they want to break that string of 5 in a row. I'm going to go with Troy in a close game because Troy's defense has kept them, with the exception of Trotwood, has kept them in every game they've played this year, and I think they'll find a way to score just enough points to squeak out a win.
I'm going to go with Troy too. I realize my shirt is blue. This does not mean I want the Indians to win. I think Troy has a lot of athletes. Like you said, I think Pick was going to be hungry in this game because they haven't won in so long, but I think Troy's got way more athletes, and I think they're going to be able to get the job done this week.
I also think Troy is going to pull this one out too. Pickwa's had some problems throughout the year. They've given up a lot of points. I think Troy's offense is starting to find a little bit of a groove now.
Right.
And I think Troy is going to pull this one out. We attempted to get Pickwa's sports writer Rob Kaiser to come in here and give us a different perspective, but
he respectfully declined.
And we've got Tip going to Springfield Shawnee, 8-1 versus 6-3. Those are a good 3 for Shawnee.
Like I said, the 3 that Shawnee lost were to Division I Troy and to Urbana and to Tecumseh. So obviously, they're a pretty good football team. But I think Tippecanoe is going to pull this one out. I think the loss to Tecumseh was a kind of a blip on the radar screen, and I think they're going to come back and win this one and get everything settled going into the playoffs.
That Tecumseh game was just a back and forth battle too, and I like you said, I think that's just, I wouldn't say a fluke, but a blip would be a pretty good word for it. And I think Tip is going to get its running game going, and I think they're just going to take care of business against Shawnee.
I'm going to pick Tip in this game, but I think Shawnee could give them a very, very good game. Like I said, they're a very good football team, won 5 out of the last 6. And they dismantled the team that had given Tip a run at Stebbins a couple weeks. They beat them 34-0. I mean, I think Tip basically controls his own destiny. They're going to be hungry to get this done, and I think they're going to come away with the win. It's going to be tough, though.
And another team that controls its own destiny is Milton Union. They haven't clinched a playoff spot, but they've only got 1-8 Northridge, so I don't know how many computer points they're getting out of this one.
Right. I don't know that they won't get a lot of computer points out of this game, obviously. And obviously I think they're going to win, but I think they've still got enough where I don't think there's enough teams close enough to them to be able to jump them. So I think they'll still get a playoff spot, but it's still going to be a road game for them. They aren't going to get enough points to move up and host a game.
And they're sitting in 7th right now, and which puts them up against Batavia at this point, the number 2 seed. And playing against Northridge, a team that's given up more than 50 points in 3 straight games. The way Milton scores, just
This could be brutal.
Milton's moving on.
Yeah, last week was Milton's playoff game. That was like a first-round playoff game. The atmosphere there was just crazy, and I think going on into this week, it's going to be a nice little confidence booster to get even more rolling going into the playoffs. I think they'll easily win this game.
Miami East is hosting National Trail, a couple of 6-3 teams, and Miami East has not been mathematically eliminated yet. They're sitting in 10th. They've got to jump 2 teams. They've got to jump Marion Pleasant and West Jefferson to get into the playoffs. And National Trail, oddly enough, could get them some points with that record they've got.
It could get them some points. I still think they'll need the teams ahead of them to lose, which very well could happen. You know, you never know.
Yeah, just to reiterate, Triad, number 7 team in the region right now. They have 9-0 West Liberty Salem, and number 6 Dixie has 7-2 Carlisle. So they're very possible games that either team could lose. I think East Path is there, man. They can get it done if they get a win here.
And I think they will get the win.
I definitely think they'll get the win.
Absolutely.
Covington didn't put up 80 points on Miami East.
Very true.
National Trail's been kind of the phantom 6-3 all year, and
there's one 6-3 and there's another.
Miami East is going to win this game. They just need a lot of help.
Yeah. But like I said, they may be a phantom 6-3, but that's still 6 wins that Miami East could use as they make a push for the playoffs.
And me personally, I thought Miami East was out of the playoff picture once they lost those couple games a couple weeks ago, and this is amazing that they have another shot to get in.
Absolutely.
Beating Bradford was
it
put them right back in it.
Yep.
Which how many years can you say beating Bradford gets you back into the playoff race?
Not many.
This has been a very cool year, and we've also got Mississinawa Valley at Bethel, 0-9 versus a team looking to get to 500. Bethel's going to get to 500.
Next.
They finished strong, man.
Before you say the next one, next.
Arcanum and Covington, 9-0 versus doesn't matter.
Who's Covington looking at playing in the first round of the playoffs? That's what they're looking for right now.
I want to point out that Covington has outscored opponents 148-6 in their last 2 games.
Yeah. And the games weren't that close.
They're going to get to 203.
200, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And finally, we got Bradford going to Twin Valley South, trying to put one more, maybe move up, maybe not be staring at Marion Local.
Yeah, that would be huge.
They've played some teams well. I mean, they're going to be a sneaky team that could sneak up on Bradford and give them a game, but I think the Rotors will win this game and march on into the playoffs.
Playoffs, biggest thing to happen in Bradford, bigger than the Pumpkin Festival. Bigger than the Pumpkin Festival.
We got big things going on all week long, so we may or may not be back next week with a playoff edition, depending on where everybody goes. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye.